Pumpkin Jack is a 3D action platformer, and I'm here to give you my thoughts on the game in a review. But just before that, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, otherwise I will die, and I will haunt you for eternity. So this review will be slightly different, as I just want to be as honest as possible with this game, but also fair with it, so just bear with me a minute. First of all, when I loaded this game up and watched the first cutscene, I was genuinely hyped, thinking this looks like a really great start for a new action platformer game, and it looked like it had a lot of potential and a quirky fun story, not to mention the great art style and music that fits this game perfectly. For the first few levels, I assumed it would start me off like most games, where it starts you off nice and slow and builds on itself to keep the new ideas flowing and allowing the player to have fun through various different weapons, level design and puzzles, as well as slowly making them more complicated and difficult but rewarding for the player to overcome. But Pumpkin Jack doesn't really do this too much, and that's what makes this game to me a little bit of a letdown. The game looks and sounds the part, but it never actually steps up in terms of its level design and complexity. The same thing happens with the combat, which is a massive shame, as each level gives you a new weapon to use, but you literally have no reason to swap weapon, as all the enemies in the game, bar two of them, can just be spammed to death. There are two enemies that are slightly different. One is a ghost which can go invisible for a moment, and the other is a gargoyle and a totem which you need to knock down. These enemies, other than the bosses, are the only ones that require any thought at all other than knowing when to dodge roll. I would have liked to see weaknesses, like if the armoured guys get hit with the shovel, it breaks their armour, so then you can swap to another weapon and finish them off. Or if you hit the ghost with the magic orb, it makes them unable to go invisible, and then you can just kill them easier. Just basic stuff like that to make the combat more engaging, other than click, 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 dodge roll, click. The single worst part of this game for me was the repetitive cart rides, ferry rides or horse rides. Whatever it is that you would want to classify them as, by the end of the game they really wore me down. They're all about a minute long each, and in most of them the most interesting part is just right clicking to break a fence, or even just killing a few enemies. That is basically it. And don't get me wrong, in short doses they would have probably been a bit of fun, but they're in every single one of the levels, not just once, but at least twice. And they don't really change, it just kind of feels like they're there to fill time. The first time I saw a mechanic like this was in Crash Bandicoot, which if you've played that series, you play those levels while riding a boar, while jumping pitfalls, boulder dodging, jumping on enemies and breaking crates. In this, there's not really any of that, and it's just one of those things that I really hoped would evolve with the game and get more creative, and it just fell flat. The boss fights are quite nice, they each have their own personality and do actually kind of build on one another in terms of difficulty and attack patterns, but once again, they are kind of stale in terms of how you beat them. All you have to do is hit them 3 times with each mechanic, and while I thought they were quite interesting fights, after you beat the first couple, you can kind of already assume that the third one is also going to be 3 hits, which takes some of the fun out of the boss fights, as you just think, well, 3 hits and I'm done. The final boss fight is pretty cool to look at fight-wise, just due to the stage layout and the music as well also helps that. But it's just another case of, well, 3 hits and I'm done. Don't get me wrong, this game as a series has massive potential, but in this game there are only a few levels, and even if you're a completionist, I reckon you could probably bash this game out in about 10 hours. I completed most of the collectibles and finished it in 5.5 hours, and that includes me going for breaks. It's even shorter than Ghost Runner, which I finished for a review, in about 8 hours. The price of this game is £24.99 or $29.99, which for the 5.5 hours it took me to complete is something I would consider to be a steep price. And there's not much replayability due to the fact that unless I want to unlock all the skins, which is the only thing I haven't done yet, I only have 1 left to go, it's not really for me, and I'd prefer more story or some extra levels unlocked for me to go back and play it again. I've said this a few times now, but it's a game I really wanted to enjoy, and for me personally it has the look and the sound of a great game. But it just fell short of what you would expect a great 3D action platformer to be. I'm unsure if this is due to budget or time constraints or for any other reason, but I hope in a way that we get a sequel, just so we can push this title to where it should be, and then I can make a review that isn't as negative as this one. So for the pros and cons, I would say the pros are that it looks great, and the ray tracing actually does give it a subtle boost to the lighting to make it look even better with the volumetric fog. The soundtrack is perfect for this game and may as well just be labelled as October 31st. The story and character design is pretty good actually, and every character you meet stands out and has some kind of quirk, and the plot is actually fun and interesting for the most part. For the cons, I would say the first con is the very repetitive level design, and I would say it needs to be fleshed out with more ideas and reasons to explore with bigger levels. For a second con, I would say that the combat just feels a little shallow and there's no real reason to use the arsenal that you are given throughout the levels. Enemies need weaknesses or just more reasons to use alternative weapons. For a third con, I would say that the boss design just needs some more variance from just hitting them 3 times. Maybe some more mechanics or engaging design, or even just adding some verticality, as for all the bosses that you face don't really use any of that 3D vertical space. Would I recommend the game? At £24.99 or $29.99, I can't really recommend it. The game just doesn't live up to its own potential to be a good game. It's fairly short, and the worst parts of the game, in my opinion, are the ones that are repeated too often. If it goes on sale, then maybe try it out, but do be warned. I've said it the whole way through the video, but I wanted to like this game, but I just can't. This may sound weird, but I hope we see more of it in either a sequel or an expansion of some kind, but that's pretty much all I can really say on Pumpkin Jack at the minute. And with that, I will see you for the next video.